Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. I hope everyone had a good festive period for those of you who celebrated it. Obviously, we have been offline for a couple of days, so I do apologise if you have been looking for the show. We are back now. Normal business resumes as usual. So yeah, I hope everyone had a good festive period. I hope everyone is doing well. Obviously, on today's show, we will be catching up a little bit, so we will of course be talking a little bit about the Aston Villa game because ultimately we weren't live that day, so I will be talking a bit about that. We'll also be talking a little bit about obviously Jim Ratcliffe, his investment in Manchester United, a bit about the January transfer window, a little bit about the futures of some players like Jadon Sancho, Raphael Varane, a couple of others, and we're going to be ultimately doing a bit of an overview of what the January transfer window looks like. There was a big story that came out yesterday from Samuel Luckhurst saying that massive changes in the player department are expected in the January window. So we will be talking about that. As always, I do ask one favour before we start the show. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's see how many subscribers we can hit in 2024. We're on 21,000 now. So let's see what we can do. For anybody asking where I've been, why there hasn't been any shows, it has been the festive period here in the UK, so it's obviously been Christmas and all the rest of it. So I was offline, I think, from the 24th to the 27th. Obviously, for anybody, it's important to have some time away from work, from time away from computers, and just to try and unwind a little bit. So yeah, I had a couple of days off, and I think it's done me good to come back, and I feel a little bit more fresh now, a little bit more ready to start 2024 and continue with 2 shows a day, which is what we've been doing since I think June. I was doing 2 shows a day every single day for 6 months, which was, I enjoy it, but it is quite a lot at the same time, But yeah, I'm back, so it's all good. I hope everyone is doing well. Right, let's start off by talking a little bit about the game on. I've completely lost track of the days at the moment, so I do apologise. Let's talk about the Aston Villa game really, really quickly. Now, I want you guys to let me know in the comment section how you're feeling after the Aston Villa performance. The first half, I sat there and I was thinking, oh no, not again. I thought the players were going to all crumble. I thought we were going to lose that game 3-4-0. But what I will say is this, right? That second half performance was unbelievable. It was. Garnacho has shown why he should be one of the players we build that team around. Højlund, I'm so happy that he scored a goal. I'm so happy. I was so sick of seeing these people trolling him on Twitter. It was literally just driving me crazy. So I'm so happy for Højlund. That moment at the end when he was celebrating and he was like pretty much crying on the pitch. It was, yeah, obviously it's very powerful, for a boyhood Manchester United fan to be playing for the club and to score his first goal at Old Trafford in the Premier League. So big ups to Højlund. And the one thing I will say, right, the main taking point I took from that game against Aston Villa was this. Not a single person out there can say that these players aren't playing for Erik ten Hag. From that team that played on a couple of days ago, they all clearly are. Every single one of them. Because they could have quite easily, right? If they wanted Erik ten Hag to be sacked, they could have quite easily gone out in that second half and put in no performance and lost that game. But they didn't. Whatever Erik ten Hag said to them at half-time, that changed the game. And fair play to those players, because that's what we need. We need players we can trust, players we can rely on. Obviously, Dalot, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Johnny Evans, Eriksen. I think Eriksen was a massive, massive boost. I really, really do. I think he makes so much difference. And do you know what, right? I don't want to single out players, but it's funny that, I don't think we'd won a game for about 5 or 6 matches. We haven't scored a goal for like 5 or 6 matches. And the game when we drop Scott McTominay, we beat a team who were literally 1 point off the top of the table. I think every other, top 4 team had lost to Aston Villa this season. Man City had, Liverpool had, Arsenal had. We're the only team to have beaten them. And that's an incredible thing. It is. So I was really, really happy with that game. I hope you guys were as well. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Daniel says, as a fan, that's all I asked for, honestly. The fight, that intensity, it was old school United games that excite you. Mate, it was. That Aston Villa game, honestly, it just, I don't want to sound soppy, but like it just made me feel so warm inside watching them go out there in that second half and play for that manager, play for those fans, and to just show us that they care, because I was starting to doubt whether any of these players cared. And it was frustrating. And Daniel also says, dropping McTominay was what we asked for months ago. I know, mate, we've said this time and time again, that McTominay needed to be dropped, that he was the kind of the piece of the puzzle that was causing all of the issues. Kelly says all we need is consistency. I agree. And K-Ide says changing the coach immediately is the only solution. You always get one person who's obviously got a differing opinion. Like, I've always been very level-headed on this show, I think. I've always respected other opinions. I'll read out other people's opinions, even if I disagree with them. Let me know why you think the coach needs to be changed. Let me know in the comment section. And I'll say this to you now, right? The coach is not going to be changed until Jim Ratcliffe is 100% in the club. And even then, he might not be changed. That's the way it's going to work now. Jim Ratcliffe will be looking after all of the sporting side of the club. We know that. And there was a little interesting fact. I know people are still upset that Qatar didn't get the club. I know people are disappointed. I know people think 25% isn't good enough. But I saw on when they filed the official filing on the SEC, which is like the American, I'm not sure what it actually stands for, but it's in America, isn't it? It's like a finance thing. SEC. So it's the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it's anything to do with the stock market. So when this deal was agreed, was it on Christmas Eve? Manchester United obviously had to file it with the stock exchange, which is the SEC, I think, overlook. Anyway, as part of this filing, one really interesting fact that came out was this. So obviously, Jim Ratcliffe is buying 12.5% of the Glazers shares and 12.5% of the shares on the New York Stock Exchange, right? But we also know that he's investing £300 million of additional money into Manchester United, into Old Trafford, into all of those types of things, right? And what is said on this filing is that apparently, in return for this £300 million, he'll be getting an additional 4% of the shares from the Glazers. So he's actually going to have nearly 30% of the club. So he'll own about a third of the club, give or take a couple of percent. So, I mean, it's gone from a quarter of the club to a third of the club. I know it's still not full sale. I know that everybody wants the Glazers out, but I think it's okay for the time being, for him to have a third of the club. And the other interesting thing, which I thought was really, really interesting is, and I wanted to straighten this out because I know a lot of people are getting a little bit confused about this. It's not Ineos buying the company. It's a new limited company that's been set up by Jim Ratcliffe on his own. It's called Trawlers Limited. So it's not Ineos buying this 30% in Manchester United. It is Jim Ratcliffe through a new business he set up. And it's 100% funded by himself. No debt, no credit cards, all of his own money. So, you know what? You've got to give a bit of credit where it's due. It went from Ineos buying the 25%, Ineos borrowing the money to buy 25%. Who's going to be making the decisions? Is it going to be all of the people at Ineos? It seems like it's just Jim Ratcliffe and he's bringing Sir Dave Brailsford on board just as the head of performance. So, you know what? I'm feeling quietly confident about things now. I think we should try and move forward. And I think that it could only be better. Somebody says, Kieran, you sound tired of people saying Erik ten Hag should be sacked. As I said, as I always say on these shows, I always welcome other people's opinions. I'll always read them out. We can always have an open discussion about people's opinions. But I just think, how can you want the manager sacked after what we saw against Aston Villa? They're the most informed team in the Premier League. They've beaten Man City, they've beaten Arsenal, they've beaten Liverpool. They've beaten all of the top teams in the Premier League over the last couple of months, right? They're third in the Premier League. They were 1 point off the top. We were 2-0 down at half-time. And these players are clearly playing for the manager, right? And the one thing I took from this, right, which was the really, really positive thing for me, is that these players are playing for the manager. And the black and white of it is, they're clearly just not good enough, these players. And we just have to remind ourselves of that. They're not consistent enough. You've got, a 20-year-old leading the line in the attack. You've got Garnacho. You've got all of these people who could go on to be world class, but they're not world class yet. And we just have to remind ourselves of this. It's a process. So to say sack the manager, I just don't see how that reaction is valid after what we saw against Aston Villa, for me personally. If we'd have lost 10-0 to Aston Villa or 5-0, then obviously you'd have to start entering those conversations, After the game against West Ham, I didn't think we played terribly, but I was a little bit like, where do we go from here? have the players down tools, and you do start having those thoughts. But, if you haven't won a game in 5 matches, of course, it's valid to start having, those types of thoughts. But let's look forward. Obviously, we've got Nottingham Forest on Saturday away from home. Nottingham Forest obviously just beat Newcastle away from home. So that's going to be a difficult match. I still think we can beat them. And then we've got Wigan in the FA Cup. Wigan are a League One side. We should comfortably be beating them. And then we've got Tottenham Hotspur at home. I think we could go on a bit of a run here. I think we might get a result against Forest. Obviously, anything other than a win against Wigan would be a disaster. And I think we'll beat Tottenham at home, to be honest. Tottenham aren't the side they were at the beginning of this season. They have dropped off a little bit. They've got lots of injuries, as do we. So yeah, I'm feeling quietly confident. But the key thing here is that we have a really, really good January transfer window. David says, hi from Oz. Did you realise we used 8 academy players? Surely that's a record. Yeah, mate, it's incredible. It really, really is. Daniel says, if we beat Forest, we can get then a good run of games and Erik ten Hag gets a confidence boost. Yeah, mate, I'm 100% in agreement with that. And for those of you who want Erik ten Hag to be sacked, I don't see it happening now because we've only got 2 games in January. We've got a game against Wigan and a game against Tottenham. They won't sack him outside of the transfer window, I don't think, because they'll want to be in there. They'll want to, review everything. They want to check why things are working, why things aren't working. So I think that it was kind of now or never, really. I think if we'd have lost to Aston Villa and then maybe lost to Nottingham Forest, I think there would have been serious questions asked. And I would imagine that he probably would have gone, which I think would have been the wrong decision. He really, really would. I think, if something's failing, you should find out why it's failing before you remove the manager. We made the same mistake with Ralph Rangnick. Rangnick was there. He was putting out all of these revealing truths about the club. He was telling the media, the fans, that, we needed 10 players, we needed open heart surgery. They get rid of him. Instead of finding out what he found out from his time at the club. Yes, Ralph Rangnick wasn't a very good manager. Okay, I accept that. But his experience and his knowledge at the club in that kind of 6 to 7 month period would have set Erik ten Hag up way better than getting rid of him. But obviously that was the decision the Glazers made. They don't like people criticising them, and we've known that for a very long time. Right, let's move on to more of the topical news, though, because I've kind of just been talking. I haven't really been speaking about what I actually wanted to speak about, but that's fine. It's good to sometimes just let the show naturally flow. So the story that I wanted to focus on is from Samuel Luckhurst, Manchester Evening News, and he's saying that Manchester United are already consulting with the relevant figures at Ineos over potentially significant changes to the playing staff next month, while any decision on Erik ten Hag's future would also have to be okayed by Ineos. So from what we're hearing this morning from lots of different places in the media, there is going to be players coming in January. There will be, and there will be players leaving as well. Obviously, Sancho looks like he's going to go. That's fine. That's good. I think Anthony Martial might go as well because doesn't seem to be playing at the moment. Apparently, he's ill still. He's been ill for like 3 weeks. I have a feeling that Martial's going to go. Obviously, Donny van de Beek's going to Frankfurt on January the 1st. I would imagine 3 or 4 players will probably leave the club. Obviously, there's some others that have question marks. Varane, Casemiro. We'll talk about them in a minute. But obviously, if you get rid of people, you have to bring in replacements. Now, will it be permanent signings? I'm not sure. I would probably go for loans at the moment because I think that's probably the most sensible option. Get some loans in till the end of the season and then kind of reevaluate in the summer window. In relation to Raphael Varane now, this is very, very interesting. This is coming out from Sport Bild that apparently Bayern Munich are going to submit a £20 million bid for Raphael. Sorry, 20 million euros. The headline is that Bayern Munich are willing to submit an offer of 20 million euros for Raphael Varane in the January transfer window. I'll tell you this now, right? Sell Varane in the summer, fine. I think he'll have 1 year left on his contract in the summer. That would be the good time to sell him. But for me, getting rid of your best centre-back now, I think that would be a terrible decision. Although arguably, if I'm looking at it playing devil's advocate, 30 years of age, 350 grand a week, he has only got 1 year left on his contract. I think his contract expires in the summer, but we have an option to extend it by 1 year. So, if Manchester United really don't want to keep him, then maybe you do that. And I'll say this now, to be fair, right? This new centre-back that's come through the youth academy, is it Willy Cambuala? Willy Cambuala? He looks unbelievable. And you know what? he looks like a mould of Raphael Varane. 6'4". He's fast. He's strong. And I honestly think he's good enough to be in and around that squad going forward. I genuinely would not bother going and buying someone like Antonio Silva, because we could already have our own Antonio Silva sat right there. They're both 19 years of age. Yes, obviously, Antonio Silva is much further ahead in his development. You know, he's already playing for the national team and all the rest of it. But he was good against West Ham. He was good in the cameo he made against... my brain's gone. Against Aston Villa. I would give him a chance. I would much rather now start to bring through these youth prospects and give them an opportunity. These people who literally will go out on that pitch and die for the badge, because we know they will. You know, the Dan Gores, the Hannibal Mejbris, the Cambuala, the centre-back guy, the obviously the Garnachos, the Hoylands, the Mainus. Like, all of these people will die for that badge. They will. And you always do have to question, if you go and spend £100 million on Antonio Silva in the summer, yes, he's a good centre-back. Yes, he was my number one choice in the centre-back position. But might he take a couple of years to settle in? Might he come here and not like living in England? Like, there's all of these things. I know it sounds a little bit black and white, but there's all of these things we have to consider. And when you're investing such a large amount of money in players, and it's gone so badly wrong for us for so many years, you know, the Pogba situation, Lukaku, Sanchez, Sancho, like... Every single one of our big profile signings has flopped, let's be honest. It has. Di Maria. Like, I genuinely can't think of one. I mean, the only one is maybe Bruno Fernandes, and he was around 50 million. But any of those ones that are kind of 60, 70, 80 million, 90 million, they've all flopped. They have. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. What would you prefer to happen? Obviously, in the long run, we want to be bringing in the biggest names in football. But let's be real here, guys. We're not at that point in our journey at the moment, okay? We're not going to be attracting like the... I don't think we can attract people like Osimhen and people, you know, these names that everybody wants. I just think, why would they come to United? You know, if there's an Arsenal, if there's a Liverpool, like if there's these other top teams who are interested in these types of players, which there always will be, I don't think they'll choose to come to United at this moment in time. Now, the only exception is if we pay them more money, which I disagree with. I think we need to stop doing that. Or they're a boyhood Manchester United fan. Those are the kind of the two scenarios, you know? So like in the summer, for example, obviously PSG put in a bid for Højlund, and he said, I don't want to go PSG, I want to go Manchester United. I'm a boyhood Manchester United fan. I want to play there. It's my dream. There are obviously players who still are in that position and still support Manchester United since a child. But I just think generally, when Jim Ratcliffe comes in, Paul Mitchell, all the rest of them, they need to completely change our transfer strategy. I would much rather us see promoting from inside the club at the moment whilst we're in this sticky situation, because money is not going to be readily available. We're going to have to be very, very clever with our business. And if we go and spend £100 million on one player and it doesn't work, we're going to be screwed. It's as simple as that, because we need 5 or 6 players. Maybe 2 or 3 of them come through the youth academy, and then you get 2 or 3 players for 20, 30 million each. You know, that's what we need to be doing. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Yeah, everyone seems to be very, very positive about this Cambuala guy. And Daniel's asking about this supposed bid for Marcus Rashford. Yeah, I have seen this story floating around quite a lot. Let's talk about that really, really quickly then. So the story was that apparently, I believe it was a Saudi club, was going to put in a bid of 180 million for Marcus Rashford. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think Rashford would go to Saudi. I don't. I would be absolutely shocked if Rashford went to Saudi. I would. I think he's still good enough to play in Europe, you know? And let's be honest, right? Marcus Rashford had a much better game against Aston Villa. He assisted a goal for Garnacho that was disallowed. And then he assisted the other goal for Garnacho as well, didn't he? He had a good game, so fair play to him. And I think the key thing to that was that he was playing on the side of the pitch that he liked, and Garnacho was playing on the other side. And I think it worked really, really well. Would I sell Rashford for 180 million? Of course I would. Purely because we're absolutely screwed financially at the moment. And any player is not worth 180 million. Not a single one of our players. Bruno's not worth 180 million. I don't know. Whoever, I mean, there isn't really any other players who are worth that type of money, but there is no way on earth a single one of our players is worth 180 million. 180 million is like Lionel Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo in his prime type money. Like that those are those types of players. And let's be honest, Rashford is not and will never be a 180 million pound player. So would I sell Rashford for 180 million? Yes, of course, you have to. Manchester United's a business at the end of the day. I know it's a football club to us, but looking at it from the outside in, even if he was our best player and he was in form like he was last season, you'd still have to sell him for 180 million because that's absolutely stupid money. I mean, I guess you could argue, though, obviously in the summer, how much did Saudi Arabia offer for... Yeah, I mean, I say that. I'm just looking at an article here from the summer. Sky Sports News. Liverpool reject £150 million bid from Saudi Pro League team on transfer deadline day. I mean, that's absolutely crazy, isn't it? £150 million for Mohamed Salah. But I mean, let's be honest, Salah is levels above Rashford. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one. Let me know in the comment section though, guys. Would you sell Marcus Rashford to Saudi for 180 million if that bid does come in January? And if you did, let me know who you would, who would you spend that money on? What could 180 million pounds get us now? Let me know what you think. The big issue as well with that is though, every other team would know that you have 180 million sat in your bank account. So a 20 million pound player is now going to be being quoted at 60 million. So yeah, I mean, at the same time though, yeah. Graham says, if people are going to keep saying Erik ten Hag out, who are you going to bring in? Mate, I agree with you 150%. For those of you who want Erik ten Hag out, you will have Darren Fletcher and I can't think of the other guy's name. You're going to have Darren Fletcher as the interim manager, and then you'll most likely have Graham Potter. I don't want that. I simply do not want that. So yeah, it's not even a conversation for me because I just think that it's all good and well screaming, get Erik ten Hag out. He's not good enough, this, that, and the other. But when you look at actually what's going to happen if he goes, it's not going to be better. I mean, it's impossible to say whether it'll be better or not because we can't tell the future. But for me personally, Erik ten Hag 100% over Graham Potter without a shadow of a doubt. Somebody says, I would sell Rashford for 80 million. Anything more than that is a crime. I don't think they'd sell him for 80 million personally, mate. I think it would have to be like a crazy, crazy bid, an 100 million pound plus bid. Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. So obviously we spoke about Varane. We've spoke about the January transfer window. I want you guys to let me know in the comment section, what business do you think Manchester United will do in January? Who do you think will leave? And what positions do you think we'll look at bringing in? That will be the end of today's video, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. I will be back live this evening, about 6 o'clock UK time. Obviously, normal business resumes now. Again, apologies to anybody who's been trying to find me over the last couple of days. I just had some time off over the festive period. Thanks to everyone who's joined me this morning. Please do smash a like on the video before you go. Please do subscribe if this is your first time watching. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everybody. And I'll speak to you all a bit later.